When Mafia boss Dante Russo crashes bleeding into Dr. Amara Okonkwo's clinic, she has two choices: let him die or save the man who will destroy everything she's built. One night of surgery pulls her into a violent underworld she fled halfway across the world to escape. And now the same hands that extracted bullets from his chest might be the only thing standing between him and his enemies, or between her and the freedom she's fought so hard to claim. The bullet tore through Dante Russo's shoulder with a sickening crack, spinning him backward into the rain-slicked alley. Blood bloomed across his white shirt like a deadly flower, and the world tilted sideways as his knees hit the concrete. His second-in-command, Marco, was screaming something, but the ringing in Dante's ears drowned out everything except the sound of his own ragged breathing. Another shot. Another. The ambush had come from nowhere, tearing apart what should have been a simple territory negotiation. Now 3 of his men lay dead, and Dante could feel his consciousness slipping away like water through his fingers. "Boss, stay with me." Marco's face swam into view, pale and terrified. Dante had never seen fear in Marco's eyes before. That's when he knew it was bad. Really bad. "Get me somewhere?" Dante gasped, tasting copper. "Not the hospital. They'll finish what they started." Marco hauled him up, and Dante's vision went white with pain. They stumbled through back streets, Dante's blood leaving a trail on the sidewalk. He was dimly aware of a car, of movement, of Marco shouting at someone on the phone. Then everything went dark. He woke to the sensation of being dragged, his expensive shoes scraping across tile. Bright lights. Antiseptic smell. A woman's voice, sharp and commanding, cutting through the fog. "Put him on the table. Now." "Listen, lady, you don't understand who," Marco started. "I understand he is maybe 10 minutes before he bleeds out, so unless you want to explain to his mother why you wasted time talking, shut up and help me cut this shirt off." Dante forced his eyes open. The woman standing over him was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with softness. She was all angles and efficiency, her dark skin glowing under the surgical lights, her black hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore scrubs and an expression that said she'd seen worse than a bleeding mafia boss on a Tuesday night. Her hands moved with absolute confidence as she assessed his wounds, and when her eyes met his, there was no fear. Only irritation. "You picked a hell of a time to get shot," she said, snapping on latex gloves. "I was about to go home. Sorry for the inconvenience," Dante managed, and despite everything, he found himself fascinated by the way her jaw tightened. "Save your breath. You're going to need it." She turned to Marco and the other men crowding her small clinic. "Everyone out except one of you. And put those guns away before I throw you all out and let him bleed on my clean floor." Marco stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. "You don't give us orders." Her eyes flashed. "In my clinic, I do. Your boss has 2 bullets in him, possible internal bleeding, and about 8 minutes left if I don't operate immediately. So you can stand there waving your little gun around, or you can let me save his life. Choose fast." The silence that followed was deafening. Dante watched, almost amused despite the agony radiating through his chest, as his second-in-command actually backed down. Marco holstered his weapon and jerked his head at the others, who filed out reluctantly. "Smart choice," she said, already working, her hands steady as she inserted in 4-line. "What's your name?" "Does it matter?" Dante's voice was getting weaker. "I like to know who I'm operating on." She was cleaning the wounds now, her touch gentle despite her brusque manner.
"I'm Dr. Amara Okonkwo."
"And you are?" "Dante." "Well, Dante, this is going to hurt. A lot." She locked eyes with him, and he saw something shift in her expression. Not pity, but a kind of fierce determination. "But I've pulled bullets out of worse cases than you. Stay conscious as long as you can. Talk to me." The pain was excruciating as she began probing the wound, but Dante found himself focusing on her face, on the small line of concentration between her eyebrows, on the way her lips moved as she muttered to herself in what sounded like Igbo. She worked with the precision of a master surgeon and the speed of someone used to emergency medicine. "Where did you learn?" Dante gasped. "Lagos General Hospital, Trauma Unit. 3 years. You see a lot of gunshot wounds in Lagos." Her voice was steady, calming even as her hands performed what felt like torture. "Then I came here, thought I'd have a quieter practice. Apparently, the universe had other plans." "You're Nigerian, observant, even while dying. Impressive." There was the ghost of a smile on her lips as she extracted the first bullet with a decisive motion that made Dante's vision go white. "One down, one to go. You're doing well. Keep talking." "Why, America?" Her hands paused for just a fraction of a second. "Freedom. I was promised to someone I didn't choose. A man who thought wealth and power meant ownership." Her voice hardened. "So, I chose myself instead. Got on a plane with nothing but my medical degree and never looked back." Dante understood that in a way he'd never understood anything before. Even through the haze of pain and blood loss, he recognized the steel in her spine, the absolute refusal to be controlled. It was the same thing that had driven him to the top of his organization, the same ruthlessness that everyone else called heartless. Except in her, it wasn't ruthless. It was survival. It was dignity. "Brave," he whispered. "Necessary." She was working on the second bullet now, her brow furrowed. "This one's deeper. Embedded near your clavicle. I need you to stay very still." The next 15 minutes were a blur of agony and Amara's voice, steady and sure, talking him through each step. She told him about her clinic, about the patients she saw, about the small apartment she'd furnished piece by piece. She told him about Nigerian food she couldn't find here, about missing the chaos of Lagos markets, about building a life from scratch in a country that didn't always want her. And Dante, who never talked to anyone about anything real, found himself hanging on every word, using her voice as an anchor to consciousness. Finally, blessedly, she stepped back.
"Got it."
"Both bullets out, bleeding controlled. You're going to need antibiotics and rest, but you'll live." Dante woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of strong coffee. Every muscle in his body screamed protest as he tried to sit up, and a firm hand on his chest pushed him back down. "Don't even think about it," Amara said, appearing beside the exam table with a cup in her hand. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze was sharp and assessing. "You lost a lot of blood. Moving too fast will tear the stitches, and I didn't spend 4 hours putting you back together just to do it again." "How long was I out?" 12 hours. Your friend Marco has called 17 times. I told him you'd live, but needed rest. He didn't believe me the first 16 times. She set down her coffee and checked his vitals with practiced efficiency, her fingers cool against his wrist. Your pulse is stronger. Good. Dante studied her in the morning light. She'd changed into fresh scrubs, and her hair was loose now, falling in natural curls around her shoulders. Without the urgency of surgery, he could see the exhaustion etched into her features, the way she moved with the careful deliberation of someone running on no sleep. You stayed all night. Someone had to monitor you. Internal bleeding doesn't always show up immediately. She made notes on a clipboard, deliberately not meeting his eyes. Besides, I couldn't exactly send you home in that condition. Your men would have probably killed me for negligence. They wouldn't dare. Now she did look at him, one eyebrow raised. Because you'd stop them? You were unconscious. Because you saved my life. Dante's voice was quiet but certain. That makes you untouchable. Anyone who harms you answers to me. Amara's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. I don't need your protection, Dante. I saved you, because that's what doctors do. Not because I want to be dragged into whatever world you come from. You're already in it. The moment my blood hit your floor. Then I'll mop it up and forget you were ever here. She turned away, busying herself with organizing medical supplies. You can leave when you're strong enough to walk. There's the bill on the counter. Cash only. I don't take insurance for after-hours emergency gunshot extractions. Dante couldn't help the laugh that escaped him, even though it made his shoulder burn. You're serious. Completely. This clinic runs on a tight budget. Supplies aren't cheap, and I just used a significant amount on you. She glanced back at him, and there was challenge in her eyes. Unless you plan to pay me in threats and intimidation? Because I've had patients try that before. Doesn't work. How much?
$15,000. Done.
Dante watched her eyes widen slightly. I'll have Marco bring cash this afternoon, along with a bonus for the house call. I don't want your bonus. Amara's voice sharpened. Just pay the bill, and we're even.
No debts, no obrigações, no conexões.
You go back to your life, I go back to mine. Is that really what you want? Dante pushed himself up slowly, ignoring the pain, until he was sitting. Their faces were level now, and he could see the pulse jumping in her throat. To pretend this never happened? Yes. But she didn't move away, and Dante noticed how her hands gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles tight. I came to America to escape powerful men who think they can dictate my life. I'm not interested in trading one cage for another. I'm not offering a cage. Then what are you offering, Dante? Her eyes met his, direct and unflinching. Because men like you don't do gratitude without strings attached. So tell me now what you expect, and I'll tell you exactly where you can put those expectations. God, she was magnificent. Dante had commanded loyalty through fear for years, had built an empire on the principle that power was absolute and obedience was mandatory. But standing before him was a woman who looked at his world and saw nothing worth bowing to. She'd held his life in her hands and still refused to be impressed. I expect nothing, he said finally, truthfully. But I'd like to know you. Amara laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You don't know me, Dante. You know a doctor who happened to be working late when your men crashed through my door. That's all. I know you left everything you knew to claim your freedom. I know you work alone in a clinic in a dangerous neighborhood because you serve people who can't afford fancy hospitals. I know you faced down armed men without flinching because saving a life mattered more than your fear. Dante held her gaze. I know you're the first person in 10 years to tell me no and mean it. Something flickered across her face, too quick to read. Then respect that no, Dante. Pay your bill and leave. Find someone else to be fascinated by. Before Dante could respond, the clinic door burst open. Marco rushed in, gun drawn, followed by 3 other men. Boss, we got a problem. The Kozlov crew knows you're alive. They're asking questions, putting pressure on our street contacts. He stopped short when he saw Amara, his weapon automatically raising in her direction. Dante moved faster than he should have been able to, stepping between them despite the agony that lanced through his shoulder. Lower it.
Now.
Boss, she's a witness. She knows too much. I said lower it, Marco. Dante's voice dropped to a register that made grown men reconsider their life choices. Dr. Okonkwo saved my life. She's under my protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. Are we clear? Marco lowered the gun reluctantly, but his eyes remained cold as they fixed on Amara. The Kozlovs won't stop, boss. They'll track you here. They'll find her. Then we move him somewhere else, Amara said, her voice steady despite the gun that had just been pointed at her face. Transfer him to a private facility, somewhere with security. I'll write up his care instructions.
No hospitals.
No facilities. They'll have people inside. Marco shook his head. Boss needs to recover somewhere off the grid. Somewhere no one would think to look. Dante saw where this was going before Amara did. The estate. It's fortified, secure. We can set up a medical room. Absolutely not. Amara crossed her arms. I'm not going anywhere near your estate or whatever fortress you call home. Transfer him to another doctor, someone already in your pocket. I've done my part. There is no one else I trust with this. Dante turned to face her fully, ignoring his body's protests. One of Marco's men said into his phone, his voice urgent. Dante's jaw tightened. They'd been found. The Korean crew that worked with the Kozlovs had traced them here faster than expected. We need to move.
Now.
Marco grabbed Dante's arm, but Amara stepped forward, blocking them. He can't be moved yet. He'll tear his stitches, risk infection. The clinic's front window exploded inward in a shower of glass. Amara hit the ground as bullets ripped through the space where she'd been standing. Dante's instincts overrode his pain, and he threw himself over her, shielding her body with his as Marco and his men returned fire. The noise was deafening, the smell of gunpowder acrid in the small space. The back exit. Amara gasped beneath him, her hands gripping his shirt. Through the storage room, they scrambled backward as Marco laid down covering fire. Amara's clinic, her sanctuary, was being torn apart around them. Dante saw the fury in her eyes as a bullet shattered the cabinet holding her medical supplies, years of careful budgeting destroyed in seconds. This is your world, she hissed as they crashed through the storage room. This is what you bring everywhere you go.
Destruction.
I know. Dante's shoulder was bleeding again, warm blood soaking through the bandages.
I'm sorry.
They burst into the alley behind the clinic. Marco had a car waiting, engine running. He shoved them both into the back seat and peeled away as more gunfire erupted behind them. Amara was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off, replaced by shock and rage. My clinic. My entire life was in that clinic. Her voice broke, and Dante saw her hands trembling as she pressed them against her face. 5 years of work. Gone. I'll rebuild it. Better than before. Dante reached for her, but she jerked away. You think money fixes this? You think you can just throw cash at the problem and make it disappear? Tears streaked down her face, and Dante felt something twist in his chest. I built that place myself. Every piece of equipment, every supply, I earned it. And now it's gone because I made the mistake of saving your life. The words hit harder than any bullet. Dante had no response, no justification that would matter. She was right. His world had consumed hers in a single night. They rode in silence to his estate, a sprawling mansion in the hills that looked like something from a movie. Guards at every entrance, cameras everywhere, walls topped with security measures. A beautiful prison. Amara stared out the window, her jaw set, and Dante knew she was seeing exactly what she'd run from in Nigeria. Another powerful man, another gilded cage. The guest wing, he told Marco quietly. Give her the suite overlooking the garden. Post guards, but keep them distant. She's not a prisoner. Boss, respectfully, she knows too much. We can't just... She's not a prisoner, Dante repeated, his voice deadly calm.
She's a guest.
My guest. Make sure everyone understands that. Amara was shown to her room by Dante's younger sister, Ji-won, who'd married into the family and brought her Korean heritage into their Italian operations. Ji-won was petite and elegant, her smile warm but her eyes calculating as she assessed Amara.
오빠가 당신에 대해 얘기했어요. 지원 세드 소프트리, 덴 시치트 투 잉글리시은 어마러 록트 컴퓨즈드.
My brother spoke of you. The doctor who saved him. You're very brave. I'm very stupid, Amara replied flatly, looking around the opulent suite. Silk sheets, marble bathroom, a view of gardens that probably cost more than her entire clinic. I should have let him bleed out. Ji-won's laugh was genuine. I like you. Most women Dante brings here are... How do I say? They see only his power, his money. They perform. You see him as a problem to solve. She touched Amara's arm gently. The suite is yours. No locks on the outside, only the inside. You control who enters.
알았지? 알았어요. Amara replied automatically, then quote herself.
I mean, I understand. Jiwon's eyes lit up. You speak Korean? A little. I had Korean medical students during my residency in Lagos. They taught me basics. Amara managed a small smile despite everything. Mostly medical terms and curse words. The important things. Jiwon squeezed her hand.
Rest.
We'll talk more tomorrow. And Amara? She paused at the door. Dante is not like the man you ran from. He's dangerous, yes. Powerful, yes. But he doesn't own people.
He protects them.
There's a difference. After Jiwon left, Amara stood at the window, watching the sun set over the estate. Below, she could see Dante in the garden, talking urgently with Marco. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he favored his injured side. He looked up suddenly, as if sensing her gaze, and their eyes met across the distance. 3 days passed. Amara stayed in her suite mostly, venturing out only to check Dante's wounds and change his dressings. The work was clinical, professional. She didn't speak except to give instructions, and Dante didn't push. But the tension between them grew thicker each day, charged with words unsaid. On the 4th night, Amara found Dante in his study, surrounded by papers and looking exhausted. His shoulder was bothering him. She could tell by the way he held himself. You're not taking the antibiotics properly, she said from the doorway.
Ivy fine.
You're infected. I can see it from here. She walked in without invitation, her doctor's instincts overriding her anger. Sit down. Let me look. Dante complied silently. She removed his shirt carefully, and her breath caught. The wound was inflamed, hot to the touch. 당신 정말 stubborn, she muttered, mixing Korean and English in her frustration. You're going to end up back on my operating table. Would that be so bad? Dante's voice was quiet. It's the only time you touch me without flinching. Amara's hands stilled. Dante, I know I destroyed your life. I know you hate me for it. He turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his eyes stopped her breath. But I can't stop thinking about you. The way you stood up to armed men. The way you chose freedom over everything. You're fearless in a way I've never been.
I'm terrified, Amara whispered.
Every moment in this house, I'm terrified I'm becoming what I swore I'd never be. Dependent. Controlled. Owned. Then leave. Dante stood, wincing. I'll have Marco drive you anywhere you want. New city, new country if you want. I'll fund a new clinic, no strings attached. You'll never see me again. Is that what you want?
No.
The word was torn from him.
God, no.
I want you to stay. I want to know everything about you. I want to hear you curse in Korean when I'm being stubborn. He stopped, jaw clenched. But I won't trap you. I won't be another cage. Amara stepped closer, her heart pounding. What if I don't want to leave? What if I'm terrified because I'm starting to care about a man whose world could destroy me? Amara. She kissed him. It was fierce and desperate, months of tension breaking like a dam. Dante's hands came up to cup her face, gentle despite his reputation, and when they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I don't know how to do this, she whispered against his lips. How to be with you without losing myself. Then we'll figure it out together. Dante rested his forehead against hers.
No calles. No ownership.
Just us. Partners. Equals. Partners who drive each other crazy. The best kind. He smiled, really smiled, and Amara saw the man beneath the Mafia boss. Vulnerable. Hopeful. Human. She kissed him again, slower this time, pouring 5 days of fear and fury and unexpected feeling into it. When his hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer. She didn't resist. When he whispered her name like a prayer, she answered with his. Outside, Marco stood guard, shaking his head as Ji-won joined him. Boss is in love with a woman who could probably kill him with a scalpel.
사랑은 그런 거예요. 지원 said with a smile.
Love is like that. Dangerous and beautiful. She looked up at the lit window of Dante's study. And she won't let him be destroyed by his world. She'll make him better. In the study, Amara pulled back, her fingers tracing the bandage on Dante's shoulder. This needs to be redressed. And you need rest. Yes, doctor. Dante's eyes were warm, teasing. Will you stay? Tonight? To monitor your recovery, medically speaking. But her smile gave her away. Of course, medically speaking. He pulled her close again, breathing in the scent of her hair. Amara? Thank you for saving my life, for giving me a chance to prove I'm worth saving. She looked up at him, this dangerous, powerful, surprisingly tender man, and made her choice. Don't make me regret it, Dante Russo. Never. He sealed the promise with a kiss, and for the first time in 5 years, Amara felt something she thought she'd lost forever. Home. Not in a place, but in a person who saw her strength and loved her for it, who offered partnership instead of possession, who was willing to let her be free even if it meant losing her. And she chose to stay.
The end.